of EVR. So actually the first EVR was started by Madis here in the corner. He's trying to be very shy about it, but he was the face of Estonian virtual reality for many years. And then at the beginning of this year, we launched it in a more company-oriented manner, because we have a number of more professional outfits that work on different XR projects. And we found that it would be nice to have an association for them. I'll talk about that briefly. So anyway, I'll have two things to talk about, and I'll be hopefully cool and quick about it. First of all, we have the EVR launch, a cool video to show, and the point is that we are coming out. And the second bit is the future. So you can call it towards the Metaverse or whatever, mirror world, AR cloud, the distant future, but I wanted to say a couple words about that and maybe set a little ambition for EVR. And of course, to someone who's quite new here, and the way that I will use the term XR a lot in this talk, and some call it extended reality, which to my mind is a little bit useless term. So X just means any letter in front of V and R and M in front of R. So bear that in mind. All right. So we have 16 companies currently in EVR. As you might know, some of the logos, they are quite different. There are some schools, there are companies that make games, there are companies that make augmented reality applications, there are companies that do education, visual effects, and experiences. And the kind of mission for EVR is to basically raise the tide that raises all boats, as is the common, as people say. And there are several ways to do this. So I think one thing that we really want to do is we want to raise the profile of XR companies that are doing really well, and kind of show them so people see that there are success stories. This is inspiring for young people, this is inspiring for other people who could be working in XR, but maybe are choosing a more like safe job. And this is definitely, so for example, Wolf 3D, you probably know, they are probably the biggest avatar platform in the world for kind of avatar systems that are not built by the big tech. And they're doing really well, growing really fast, and more people should know about it. In the same way, Creative Mobile is not on this list yet, but their game grossed Into the Radius, grossed $1 million in revenue, and they're actually building 3 more games now for virtual reality. And this seems to be the trend as well, as I talked to some investors, that in places like Finland, they're kind of shifting away from mobile games, heading more into the virtual reality space. And of course, we want to work with, going forward, we want to work more with young people, also with schools, to kind of map out specific ways how you can study XR-related disciplines. And we want to be organizing events like this, also going abroad, maybe one day a conference. And we also want to, in general, facilitate information, whether it's grants or different procurement or jobs people are looking for or have vacancies to fill. And we want to provide expertise to government or private sector. And finally, in this section, we want to change the image of XR, so it's not just games. And with this, I'd like to play a video, which, oh yeah. So this is 5 minutes of goodness. It's 6 companies that are really showcasing what VR can be all about, and is all about currently in Estonia. So I'll press play as soon as I find my mouse here, and please enjoy.
Tere! Kui mõni aasta tagasi hakati rääkima virtuaalreaalsusest, ei olnud see tehnoloogia veel igaühe jaoks valmis. Nüüd on aga VR-prillid, nagu näiteks need siin, muutunud paremaks, odavamaks ja mugavamaks ning on täiesti võimalik, et vaid mõne aasta pärast on see tehnoloogia osa meie igapäevaelust. Ka Eestis tehakse virtuaalreaalsuse valdkonnas nii mõndagi põnevat. Hiljuti loodud Eesti Virtuaal- ja Liitreaalsuse Assotsiatsioon toob kokku kodumaised ettevõtmised, kus tehakse selliseid projekte, mis mõni aasta tagasi ei oleks olnud kusagil võimalikud. Siin on mõned näited.
Tere! Mis te arvate, mis ma praegu tegin? Tegin futoklassi keemiakatseid ja lennutasin raketi taevasse virtuaalreaalsuses. Põhi- ja keskkoolis on tegelikult VR-i abiga võimalik efektiivselt õppida juba paljudes õppeainetes. Külastada näiteks kohti, kuhu muidu naljalt ei satu. Minna Antarktikasse või külastada rahvusvahelist kosmosejaama. Oma kätega lahata konna või uurida raku ehitust. Meie futoklassis loome VR-i õppemänge, kus saab teha füüsika ja keemiakatseid. Kõik futoklassi õpisisu on loodud koostöös Eesti õpetajatega ja testitud Eesti koolides. Euroopa struktuurifondi abiga saame pakkuda järgneva 3 aasta jooksul osa futoklassi õpisisust tasuta Eesti haridusasutustele. Kui tahad rohkem lugeda, mine eesti.futoglass.com.
Veel üks võimalus, kuidas virtuaalreaalsust kasutada, on turismis ja meelelahutussektoris, sest VR-i abil on võimalik pakkuda selliseid elamusi ja seiklusi, mis päriselus kas pole üldse võimalikudki või siis väga raskesti teostatavad. Ja VR-elamuste väljamõtlemisel saab lasta fantaasial lennata, sest tegemist on digitaalse maailmaga, kus on võimalik luua täpselt sellised keskkonnad, ajastud ja tegelased, nagu soov on. Näiteks meie oleme loonud virtuaalreaalsuse elamuse, kus saab kehastuda Kalevipoeks, kus saab paljaste kätega maa seest puid tõmmata ja ka põrgus vanapakanaga rammu katsuda. Üks asi on Kalevipoest raamatut lugeda, aga hoopis teine tunne on ise eepose kangelasena seiklustest osa saada. Just selliste kaasahaaravate meeldejäävate VR-elamuste loomisega Maru VR igapäevaselt tegelebki.
Me oleme oma töös näinud, et pelgalt teadmiste muutmisega inimeste käitumist sageli muuta ei ole võimalik. Vaja on midagi tugevamat, sellist isiklikku kogemust. Ja selleks loob virtuaalreaalsus täiesti ideaalse võimaluse. Meie esimene virtuaalreaalsusharjutus tegelikult sai inspiratsiooni ühest muuseumi eksponaadist. Aga sellises majas on täna võimalik virtuaalselt ringi liikuda, ohtusid märgata ja neid kõrvaldada. Ja iga selline liigutus, mis sellises harjutuses tehakse, aitab päris elus tulekahjudele kiiremini reageerida, neid ära hoida. Tegelikult igaüks meist saab tänu virtuaalreaalsuskogemusele tulekahjusid ära hoida ja sealjuures seda täiesti ohutult.
Maailm on täis lugusid uhketest lossidest ja kuldsetest linnadest, mis on tänaseks jäädavalt kadunud. Maailma imedest ja murrangulistest sündmustest võib lugeda raamatutest või vaadata filmidest, kuid kas ajaloos saab päriselt olla kohal? Kirglike ajalovisualiseerijatena oleme Blu-rays veendunud, et kadunud maailmade taasloomiseks on virtuaalreaalsus parim. Meie poolt pakutavate ajalooliste sündmuste kogemus on vahetu, faktidel põhinev emotsionaalne elamus, mis muudab ajaloo värviliseks, ruumiliseks ja tekitab tunde, nagu see toimuks siin ja praegu. Niisiis, pange kõik oma meeled valmis ja äratame mineviku ellu.
Avaris loome müügile ja turundusele suunatud VR-lahendusi. Nende abiga on võimalik visualiseerida erinevaid võimalusi ja langetada otsuseid. Meie VR-projekte saab kogeda läbi prillide või arvutiekraani, allalaadides või striimides. Kinnisvara arendajad kasutavad virtuaalreaalsust, et näidata kliendile oma projekti. Klient saab reaalse tunnetuse ruumidest, mida ta saab paari nuppu vajutusega kujundada oma koduks. Tootmisettevõtetele loome virtuaalseid showroome. Virtuaalreaalsuses saame näidata sadu tooteid kõigest paaril ruutmeetril, seda ilma logistikakulude ja ruumiprobleemideta. Uuri lähemalt avar.ee.
Liit- ja virtuaalreaalsust kasutatakse järjest enamates valdkondades. TalTech on igati kaasaegne ülikool ja ka meie kasutame neid tehnoloogiaid igapäevaselt nii oma õppe kui teadustegevuses. TalTechis on mitu laborit ja lausa omaette XR-keskus, kus me neid tehnoloogiaid igapäevaselt nii õppe kui teadustegevuses kasutame. Kõik TalTechi insenerid omandavad 3D modelleerimise oskuse, 3D mudelite vaatlemise oskuse ja näiteks arhitektid omandavad oskused, kuidas arhitektuurseid mudeleid virtuaalreaalsuse kaudu esitleda. Samamoodi nõustame ja koolitame ettevõtteid, kuidas XR-tehnoloogiat just nende äri edendada saavad. Neid valdkondi ja erialasid, kus TalTechis XR-tehnoloogiat kasutame, on loomulikult palju rohkem. Vaata lisa TalTechi veebilehelt või astu läbi Mektori XR-keskusest.
Öeldakse, et virtuaalreaalsusest rääkimine on nagu arhitektuurist tantsimine. Selleks, et tõeliselt mõista, kuidas just sinule võiks sellest uuest meediumist kasu tulla, tuleks VR-i kindlasti proovida. Kui sa soovid rohkem teada, külasta Eesti Virtuaal- ja Liitreaalsuse Assotsiatsiooni kodulehte või võta meiega ühendust. Kohtume virtuaalruumis.
Thank you. Hopefully, yeah, thanks. Hopefully this showed you some of the things that have been worked on in Estonia. Next, I want to touch a bit upon the future. So this is the VR and AR industries. They're out of this graph is out of 2019, but basically it's quite similar nowadays. There are, as you can see, many different areas, whether it's hardware, software, platforms, tools, and so on. And the point of this is that it's big, it's really big already now. And it kind of puts forward the question that why even bother? Because like, what can we in Estonia really do about standards on Android or iOS or anything? It's such a huge industry. But the point is really that it's kind of what a lot of the future economy is going to be based on eventually. It might seem a bit crazy now to talk about it, but I think it's not crazy to kind of prepare for this eventuality, at least in some ways. And if you follow tech news, you probably saw Mr. Zuckerberg there on the left has been lately saying that Facebook is going to be a Metaverse company. It's a term that's been thrown around for a long time, but now it seems to be more and more seriously. And you can see different companies here that have all used it in their pitch decks and kind of in the way they operate. They basically want to create a 3D internet with interoperable standards, and you can see there's lots of technologies that need to come together for that to work as flawlessly as we'd like. But this movement is really, it's huge, and it's going that way quite irreversibly. And there is, I think for someone, what I really like is the story on the right. So there's this it's not really an essay, it's a huge amount of writing by Matthew Ball about the Metaverse primer, he calls it. But he mentions the story that 2010 there were lots of little babies who saw iPad for the first time, so they were like trying to swipe on their magazines, and magazines were broken for them. And this generation now has grown up to use something like Roblox or even Minecraft, which is basically a blocky game that is really hard for anyone old to understand what makes it magical. But it's really this generation growing up that for whom this Metaverse idea is native, and there will be lots of things coming out of that. So I think if you think about EVR as well, as what it can do over the years, I think if we can inspire a few people to start the next Bolt or Wise, but in this spatial internet space, I think that would be very rewarding to kind of serve that function as an organization to facilitate something like that. And yeah, just a few more slides showing that I don't think smartphones are going to stick around for all the functionality we're using them now, because obviously people are, we're spatial creatures. We like to look at things, touch things. We have different locations where we remember things. So there's a lot of proof that we learn and play and do everything better basically in 3D, not looking at a flat screen. And yeah, in the future, I'm actually giving a talk tomorrow at 11:30 about Metaverse in more detail. But basically, you can imagine if you, let's say, went to McDonald's, and if you are living in this world, then everything is centered around you and your context. So things just, I don't know if you wear glasses or lenses or whatnot, but this information of why you're in McDonald's, obviously when I order something and stuff will come up according to your tastes. And you can imagine, based on this very simple example, and I don't endorse McDonald's at all, just to be clear, but a simple example, you can think about how any place any interactions you have in the world can be helped a lot by this contextual information and interactive 3D, digital, like all kinds of things appearing in environment, so you can interact with them and choose what you want to do. And yeah, and my little thesis is that, so we have a founder society in Estonia, which has startups startup founders, and they have this probably very realistic expectation that the tech sector in Estonia will be growing exponentially, and it will be 30% of the economy, up from current about 3% by 2030. And then if you do a little bit of math, so you can see down there that 6,000 jobs become basically 50,000, and billion revenue becomes 9 billion. And we did a survey, and we're doing it now from here on every year with EEVR. Last year, we basically arrived to not that much revenue. It's just 2,100,000 people, and you can see that the ratio of that would be 0.2% of the tech sector. And if we keep up with their growth, and let's say the 0.2 becomes 0.5% of tech sector in 10 years, which seems super feasible considering how the special internet is becoming a bigger part of our lives. Then you can see that Estonia would have, for example, 2,500 people working in XR. And that seems like a pretty big community, and I think it's a good time to think about laying a foundation for that. And that's my talk. Thank you. And we'll give the floor to Madis.